Let's face it, artificial intelligence is showing up everywhere in our classrooms, and it's happening fast. But a lot of this adoption has been, well, pretty unplanned. That leaves us, the professionals, navigating some really powerful new tools without a clear rulebook. Now, this gets especially serious in special education, where the IEP is pretty much the most important legal document we have for a student. The stakes here are incredibly high, and our professional and legal duties haven't changed one bit.
So let's start with our foundational principle, the bedrock of this entire conversation. No matter how clever or convenient an AI tool might seem, the legal accountability for a student's education, for their IEP, is 100% human. The buck stops with us, the teachers, the case managers, the administrators. We represent the local education agency. AI is just a tool. It's not a teammate, and it's definitely not the one who has to answer for things in a court of law.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll draw a really clear line between safe and risky ways to use AI in the IEP process. Then, we'll lay out an ethical framework to guide our choices. Next up is a deep dive into student confidentiality and PII. That's a big one. After that, we'll run through some real-world, Pennsylvania-based scenarios so you can see how this all works in practice. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by reviewing our core professional responsibilities. All right, let's jump right in by talking about what's okay and what's not okay when it comes to using AI. It's really crucial to get this. It's not that we use the technology, it's how we use it that determines the risk. Think of it like this. On the left, we've got AI as a helpful assistant, which is a low-risk use. You can use it to draft a template for a goal, or maybe generate some ideas for instructional materials, or even summarize data that's been totally de-identified. These things can support our work. But over on the right, that's the danger zone. That's when AI starts acting like the decision maker. If we let it take over the IEP team's authority, or if we blindly trust what it spits out, or start using generic goals, well, that's not just bad practice. You're crossing a serious legal line.
So let's examine this legally for a second. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, guarantees every single eligible student a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE. And what's the absolute cornerstone of FAPE? The IEP has to be individualized. That means it's custom built for one specific child to help them make real progress. A generic, copy-pasted goal from a chatbot, it completely fails that test. And that failure could easily be seen as a denial of FAPE, plain and simple.
This legal demand for individualization leads us right into our next topic, building an ethical framework. Because this is about more than just following the letter of the law. We need some guardrails to protect the integrity of the entire IEP process. Let's think of these as our 4 ethical pillars. First, we have to watch out for bias. AI learns from the data it's given, and that data can be biased, so it's our job to make sure we're promoting equity. Second, like we just said, individualization is king. Under Pennsylvania's Chapter 14, IEPs are based on a student's specific needs, not some cookie-cutter formula. Third, we have to protect meaningful parent participation like it's sacred. And fourth, we've got to maintain the integrity of our documents. When you sign that IEP, you are professionally vouching for every single word in it. And that brings us to a crucial point about parent participation. From a procedural safeguard standpoint, parents have a legal right to be genuine partners in this process. So imagine walking into a meeting and handing them a draft that's already 90% done by an AI. The message you're sending is, we don't really need your input. That's a huge no-no. It's called predetermination, and it's one of the most serious procedural violations you can make. It just shatters the trust we need to build with families. Okay, now we're arriving at what is, without a doubt, one of the most critical parts of this whole conversation, protecting student data. This is where one simple mistake, one wrong click, can have severe and immediate consequences. Under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, Personally Identifiable Information, PII, is defined incredibly broadly. It's not just a name. It's any piece of information or combination of pieces that could point back to a specific kid. Think of it like a puzzle. A third grader at a certain school who has a speech issue with R sounds. If you can put those pieces together and identify the student, that's PII. And IDEA has the exact same confidentiality rules, which means every special ed record we handle is a highly protected document. Let me be as clear as I can possibly be. When you type or paste PII into a public AI tool, like the free version of ChatGPT or any other website that isn't specifically approved and vetted by our district, you are not getting help. You are committing a data breach. full stop. You're releasing protected student data into the wild, and that is a direct violation of both FERPA and IDEA. It exposes our district to massive legal liability. These right here, these are the bright red lines you can never, ever cross. This is the non-negotiable list. Just think about the first page of a Pennsylvania IEP. Student's name, birthday, disability, parents' info, yep, all PII. Pasting a chunk of text from a psych eval or a detailed behavior log is even worse. There is zero gray area here. This information stays inside our secure, district-approved systems, period. All right, enough with the theory. Let's make this real. We're going to apply this framework to 3 different scenarios that could easily happen right here in our own schools. Okay, first up, the efficient draft. Imagine a case manager who's totally swamped with a deadline looming. To speed things up, they copy and paste the student's name, their disability, and some key data points from an eval into a public chatbot and ask it to write the present levels section of the IEP. Okay, let's break this down. That case manager just created 2 major legal problems at once. First, they put PII into a public system, so that's a FERPA data breach. Second, by having a whole section written before the team even meets, they've opened the door to a claim of predetermination under IDEA. The risk here is a due process complaint. The right way to do this? Use a de-identified prompt. Ask the AI something like, give me a template for a present levels section for a 4th grader with a reading disability. Then you, the professional, write the specific, individualized content yourself. Scenario 2, the helpful accommodation. This one often comes from a good place. A general education teacher wants to be proactive, so they ask an AI, what are the best accommodations for a student with ADHD? The AI gives a list, and the teacher suggests adding preferential seating to the IEP, but without any data showing that this specific student needs it in their classroom. So here's where compliance becomes critical. The issue is a failure to individualize specially designed instruction, or SDI. Pennsylvania's Chapter 14 is crystal clear. Every single service has to be chosen by the IEP team based on that student's unique, data-driven needs. A generic suggestion from a chatbot just doesn't meet that standard. The risk? A denial of FAPE, because that accommodation might be totally useless for that kid. The right move is for the teacher to bring the question to the team, not the AI's answer, and let the professionals have a data-driven discussion. And our last scenario. This is the most severe one. A school psychologist needs to summarize a very long psychoeducational evaluation. To save time, they upload the entire PDF report, name, history, test scores, diagnosis, everything, to a free online AI summarizer tool. The legal issue here is a massive, catastrophic data breach of incredibly sensitive PII. This is a blatant violation of both FERPA and IDEA. The potential exposure is off the charts. Huge legal and financial trouble for the district, a total loss of trust with the family, and a very real risk to the psychologist's own professional license. The corrective action here is absolute. This must never happen. Summarizing that report is a core professional skill. You simply cannot outsource it to an insecure public tool. So, let's bring this all together and refocus on our core duties. As we start using these new technologies, our fundamental responsibilities don't change at all. In fact, you could argue they become even more important. Here's the bottom line. AI can be a powerful co-pilot. It can help with routine tasks, maybe save us some time. But we, the trained, experienced, ethically bound professionals, we must always be the pilot in command. You are responsible for the plan. You are responsible for the decisions, and your professional judgment is and always will be absolutely irreplaceable. Let's lock in the key takeaways from today. First, these ethical safeguards aren't obstacles. They're protections for our students, for you, and for our district. Second, compliance with IDEA, FERPA, and Chapter 14 isn't optional. It's the non-negotiable foundation of our work. And finally, remember that everything we do comes back to true, meaningful individualization. That is the cornerstone of faith. I want to leave you with this final question to think about. The goal isn't to fear technology or to avoid it. It's to master it responsibly. How can we use these powerful new tools to make our professional judgment even better? How can we leverage them to cut down on administrative tasks so we can focus more of our energy on the complex, human work of teaching? How do we innovate with integrity, making sure technology always serves our professional expertise instead of replacing it?